Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm just going to walk you through a quick video. Basically, I'm calling it Doing Business with China from the Canada perspective. And basically, I'm just going to do a few slides just to go through things in terms of when you deal with foreign countries like China, India, or specific countries, just to kind of give you an idea what it's like to deal with them and understand some of the impacts within those countries. So my agenda I'll talk about trade, I'll talk about currency rates, I'll talk about examples of trade. So Canada in general has a combined total trade about $56 billion with China. That's between exports and imports. So it's a significant amount of business Canada has with China. And the reason I want to highlight that is we have a significant amount of trade deficits. So you'll always hear the impact of trade deficits, because basically that means if we're importing more than what we're basically exporting, that creates what we call as a deficit, and that's an outflow of capital. So you need to understand that, because that impacts our balance of trade. It also impacts the access of capital. So it's important to understand that perspective. Now, most people don't understand how international business works. A lot of you have probably been educated a little bit in supply chain management, but not to the extent what it's like to deal with foreign countries. So I'm going to walk you through things if you were to basically set up a business in China. You can't just walk into China and say, I'm going to do business. You need to do your studies. It's just like anything else. You need to do your understanding of government policies, just how the lay of the land is. So basically, most companies that are going in to do business, they do a country visit. So you get the lay of the land. You go visit some of the historical sites, the cities, just to understand the flow. You also need to understand the dynamics of industry within China in terms of how they have it's clustered or how they're organized. You need to understand. You don't rush into any decision, so you should take your time. Now, Chinese culture is very differently, so the next 3 or 4 items are all about cultural understanding, the workforce dynamics, and just understanding the flow of the culture in terms of the work environment versus North America. The other thing that you need to understand too in the next pieces as well that link together is the role of government. Despite what everybody says, most decisions are decentralized by the Chinese government. Now, overall policies will be dictated by Beijing, but most cases decisions are decentralized. So you need to be comfortable who you're dealing with. The other thing is you need to understand who the players are, because it's very, very important when you get into these foreign countries to understand who the players are. Because some people may be able to make promise to you, but don't have enough power behind them to actually exert any change. Or you could find a collective group of people that want to keep control of a certain product or a certain thing that they're trying to do with their local market and dynamics in order to control price or volume. So you need to be understanding of that, because that can impact how you're able to set up operations there. Now, what Canada did to kind of help this is they created what they call as the FIPA, which is an investment agreement with China to allow more access for business investment to flow between countries. You're going to hear a lot of negativity about it, but this deal is actually a pretty good deal in terms of helping protect people. Now, you might hear something about the right to sue. Well, that's all part of every sort of trade agreement, but typically in order to do that you have to breach certain contractual issues, and that likely is something that very rarely happens. We even under NAFTA, I think the amount of trade that we've seen, it's such a small percentage that ever goes to the legality issue that impacts the government. Let's talk about exchange rates, because this drives imports and exports, more so the import, the cost of goods. So this chart kind of shows you what's happening with the Canadian dollar versus the yuan, and that's you're seeing with the almost the rusty red and yellow. So you're seeing that the Canadian dollar has struggled against the Chinese currency, and it seemed to rebound a little bit there. That's what I want you to get out of that one. Now, everybody knocks Canada for its oil sands, carbon emissions, but what they very rarely say anything about the Chinese environmental standards. Look at the ranking that you're seeing here from air quality. They're ranked 176 out of probably about 180 countries. So their overall ranking on air quality is very poor. Look at their agriculture. Pretty poor too. And these are sound foundations in terms of feeding things. They're a population of 1.2 billion, and they're struggling with basically key areas that are driving things, from water and sanitation to air quality to agriculture. You see that basically they're struggling. Now, they made some significant changes in climate change, but not significantly enough. And that's all I want you to get out of this slide. Now, most of you have cell phones. Most of you have iPads. Most of you have any sort of flat screen. So this particular slide falls into that because that's the bulk of where everything you're getting is coming from China. Now look at the far left hand side. You see rare metals. Rare metals are the foundation that basically builds your cell phone. So look at what's happening there. The mining process itself, extracting it, pollutes both water and the land. You never hear that discussed at any level as part of the debate around trade examples or imports. Second thing is, look at the cell phone factory that they produce these. Look at how hard they are in their labor. There's no real labor standards or protection for labor there. You hear all the time unions here talk about protection here. Chinese workers have very little protection. The third bullet thing you see there, shipping in containers. Well, I put the biggest picture there of a container ship that just pulled into Long Beach port a couple weeks ago before Christmas. Look at what it does in terms of the one massive ship. Its carbon footprint is like 50 million cars. So when we bring in all these imports from China from a container ship, it's polluting the air more than driving 50 million cars. And then I got the consumer there, so you can see at the end I'm happy with my cell phone. What you're not understanding is the dynamics of that cell phone and its overall carbon footprint and what it's going in terms of labor standards, environmental standards to get you that phone. It's nice to blame people here in Canada, but when you start looking at where we produce this stuff, people are not understanding the dynamics of what goes in from the extraction, the processing, to the shipping, to you get it in your hands, the impact. The reason why I want to illustrate this is a lot of people got a lot of information, different things from people, but I wanted to put pictures and clearly show you examples what's happening when you start dealing with these products in terms of the overall carbon footprint. Thank you.